Hey guys, Brian Stevens here with Mortgage Shop to the National Real Estate Post. I got a gentleman named Albert Hajdaraj, who's a real estate agent out of Massachusetts, correct?
Yes, and Rhode Island, Massachusetts and Rhode Island, both.
Okay, gotcha. Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I went to Rhode Island one time, and we got to go to where they were. They have these simulators to where you could dock these massive vessels. Have you seen that before? It's crazy. It costs a fortune. You'll spend $100,000 going into these simulators. We got to go into those simulators on one of these real estate speaking gigs I did over there. It's pretty cool.
Was it Newport? It was Newport, right?
I'm not sure. I know it was Rhode Island.
Yeah, it probably was the Newport area. Yeah.
It's pretty. But we went in there and somebody was docking, and you could go to any dock anywhere. You can go to any port anywhere in the world, and they set it up. And they're like, you guys need to shut up. Like, this is like super, super stressful because they have so much riding on making this, captaining these ships in these ports. I don't know. It's one of the cool things that I saw as a result of real estate. But hey, let's just jump right into this. So I read a post that you did. I've been reading Zillow Reports for a long time now. And very seldom do you find other people who read Zillow Reports. And you posted on Facebook. You said, well, I read this so you don't have to. And you came up with a couple of things that I certainly liked. But rather than me talk about what you said, why don't you tell me what your thoughts are on the Zillow Report?
Yeah, man. So I tend to read the reports here and there. I read probably the last 3 years I read. And then this one I read and I said, hey, let me work on some sort of like newsletter on this one and see if I can come up with a couple of things that will help me, and then maybe I'll post it and see if other agents will find valuable. So I naturally kind of lean towards the technical side of the report because it's a lot. There's 148 pages and it covers not only the real estate side, but their plans and everything that they're planning to do, basically. So I kind of focused on the real estate side, the leads that they generate, the money that they charge agents, the revenue that they generate, where it really comes from. So that was my main focus. And then one thing that, unless you're in the game, you will not really understand is the number of leads generated. So I had to do some more digging to find that, because apparently they stopped sharing that number in 2016. So the last time they shared that number was 2016, and the number of leads they generated was 16.9 million, right? Now, probably in 2023, that number is 23, 24, but I didn't want to guess, so I just went with that number. And that's where it kind of clicked with me, because, and I know I'm going too long here, but that, to me, this was my biggest takeaway. They were responsible for 360,000 transactions in the US, but they sold 16 million leads for those transactions to realtors. Their conversion ratio is just a little bit over 2%. It's not even 3%, but the amount of money that we pay, because we consider these leads to be premium leads, is crazy. So like that, to me, that was my biggest takeaway from reading it.
You know what's interesting about Zillow? So I owned a product called Listing Booster, which we aggregate properties and we put lead capture on everything, and we got really great at generating leads. And one of the things that I learned is that a lot of these companies who sell leads, they also buy leads. So what will happen is, if they can't fulfill their contractual obligations, or if they're falling behind in terms of, like, let's just say Zillow wasn't generating the number of leads or traction that they needed to get for the money they were taking in, the promises that they had with their premier agents. What companies like Zillow would do is reach out to companies like Listing Booster and say, hey, we'd like to buy some leads off of you, because we were generating over 100,000 leads a month. And so what they would do is they'd buy old leads for pennies on the dollar, and then what they do is they scrub them, they put them through a call center and see if people are still interested, or if they bought a house, find out what the disposition of those are, theoretically, and then they'll go ahead and pawn those off as their own leads. So when I hear that the conversion ratio is 2 to 3%, I'm not really surprised, because I think a lot of leads from these types of companies, they're oftentimes stepped on leads. You know what I mean? And then when you look at companies like Zillow, I think what they're also doing is, I think that those leads aren't just necessarily going out to one real estate agent. So, if you're going to give my information as a buyer to 5 different agents, you've just diluted that agent's ability to go ahead and convert that. So these numbers are not terribly shocking, but I guess my question to you is, if now that you've seen in just really black and white terms that this is what the conversion ratio is, and I would agree with your numbers on that, what do you take away from that? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Is that the highest and best use of a real estate agent's time and money, or do you think there's greener pastures out there?
Yeah, good question. I think of Zillow, especially after reading this and spending the time, I think of it in two ways, right? I think for the consumer, I think Zillow is good. I think it provides transparency, and I think it makes our job as real estate agents easier, which I also put in the report. I think the consumer comes to us a little bit more informed about the market. You know, they go in there on the website, they search for homes and do all that stuff. So they're a little bit more informed. So I like that. I like to have a better, more educated consumer to kind of start at, you know, maybe like if the scale is 0 through 10, maybe start at 3 rather than start at 0, right? But when it comes to real estate agents, I look, I bought Zillow leads for probably the last 4 years. This year alone, I spent about $17,000, and I probably made $18,000. Right, so the ROI was trash, and you know, and it's gotten worse with interest rates and stuff like that. But I have made an executive decision that I will never buy Zillow leads again, and not because I have something against Zillow. It's just that the investment simply does not make sense financially. The amount of money they're charging you for these leads, it just doesn't make sense. I'd rather grab that $15,000 and invest it in my brand, in hiring a ISA, hiring an assistant, or doing local events, things like that, that will actually help you connect with people and sell more real estate and grow a legitimate brand, than feeding a company that is generating leads that you're just kind of turning and burning on a daily basis. And then there's nothing, if you stop, it stops. Like, you're not building a brand. So that's how I see it for real estate agents.
So, like, but don't you also think, and I think the added advantage of going about it your way instead of the Zillow way is when you're generating your own leads organically, you're also building relationships. You know what I mean? When you're buying a Zillow lead, you're potentially buying an opportunity on a phone call with somebody. When you're generating your own leads, there's usually a run up to that conversation where somebody has in some capacity got to know, like, and trust you through your activities. And that seems to be a better foundation than a Zillow lead. A Zillow lead seems to be kind of, you know, a quick turn and burn, but what you're doing is it sounds to me like building more of a business. So now,
Yeah.
you just told me you've been on Zillow's tip for quite a while, and you've gotten off of it now, and you've transitioned. Are you finding your activities right now outside of it more fruitful than what you're doing with Zillow? And what are a couple of the things that you're doing right now specifically that are working out for you?
Yeah. So when I decided to get off of Zillow, first off, it's a scary thought because it's like addictive, right? It's like, oh my God, I don't have these leads come. So it's a scary thought. But when I look at the numbers, I'm like, not only am I spending the money, which is fine. I broke even, made $2,000, fine. The time that it takes to convert these leads, it's crazy. I'm like, if I spend this much time in the people that I already have relationships with, there's no chance that I'm at least not going to generate the same business, if not more. So that's really how I switched it. So to answer your question as to what I'm doing now, I doubled down on my sphere of influence and past clients, right? That's really where most of my focus is. I stay in touch with them through mailers, through social media, gift cards, things like that. I invest that money there. And then also through content. So like, I have a YouTube channel that kind of covers Rhode Island. Locally, I talk about the market there, and then I just have people reach out organically who already feel like they know me through my content, right? And I'm having a decent year doing it, and guess what? I'm spending less time prospecting because I'm building my brand, and then more things are coming to me rather than having a lead. Well, did you call them in the first 4 seconds when they came in? Oh yeah, I did. Did you send them 3 texts, 8 emails in the first hour? Like, all of that is fine and it works, but I just think to build a successful long-term brand as a real estate agent, I think you need to at least allocate some funds, time, and attention to other things that will do that, because just paying for leads, it's just not the solution, in my opinion.
I think you said you spent 17 grand last year, so about $1,300 a month on Zillow leads. Are you spending that much money? Have you taken that money and reinvested it in what you're doing right now, or are you spending less money right now?
I'm spending less.
You're spending more time, but less money. So you have a cost of time, but not a cost of money.
Yes, yes. And things like this, right? Like doing research, sending this to my sphere, they appreciate it, right? Even realtors, referrals, right? Like, I'd rather, this probably took me 4 or 5 hours to really read it, understand it, put it together, share it. But if you have constant leads coming in, the way you're operating is like it's in a place of anxiety, because you have to answer your phone. There's constant interruptions. So these are things that have changed for me that I'd rather, honestly, if I have to do less business in the next 2 to 3 years to build my brand, I'm okay with doing that than spend money on leads like this to generate more business so that I can feel like I'm working hard.
Well, I mean, think about this. If you don't have to start $18,000 in the hole. Like that's what you're doing with Zillow. You have to make $19,000 to make $1,000 working with Zillow. So if you just get off the tit, you're not starting 18 grand in the hole. You're already ahead of the game. And I think you're building a stronger business as a result of doing that. That's really interesting. So what advice would you give to other agents in other markets then?
I really would don't read my report, go read Zillow's report. Understand these numbers and then look at your market. Look at who dominates Zillow, right? Who dominates these lead sources, and really look at these people's numbers and see what kind of return they're getting on their money. And I would, just so that you understand it, right? Because my advice would be get off of that and really just refocus on your brand, start contributing to your community, and business is going to start coming your way. That would be my advice. And I think especially for the next 24 months, you know, the cost of leads is going up. The number of transactions is down by 20-25% in a lot of markets. So it's simple math. Like you're going to spend more money to do less deals. Maybe this is the time to switch it, focus on your brand, and then in the next 12 to 24 months, you're going to have something way more sustainable that you can grow for the long term.
Well, listen, guys, if you'd like to see what Albert had to say, we've got that link down here below, along with the Zillow report. Check them both out if you want to reach out to Albert as well. All of his information is on here. Albert, thank you so much for your time, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.